have them run it through its paces on their coding machine.
Yes.
To come up with first.
And check that mass airflow sensor no matter what you do, because that's important at the age of this vehicle to make sure it's clean.
Yeah, I'm going to go back. If you don't spend any, if you don't want to spend any money, like limited amount of money before you bring it into a shop, go ahead and get some of the chem tooler and clean out that area in the air intake and get everything cleaned up. Put a can of fuel additive in the tank and drive it spiritedly around for a half hour or so. Take it around the loop in your town, of your interstate around the town, or whatever it might happen to be, and then just see what happens and see if it changes any. If you start seeing some changes, it's definitely going to lead you towards the point that you got some more tune-up that you need to do.
Okay. All right, don't start with a specialist at the transmission shop. Start with the small stuff.
I would in this case, just because it doesn't sound like you've done a lot, and you're going to spend less than $40 probably messing around.
Yep.
And you're going to be able to see if it makes a difference or not.
Barium and B12 chem tool is what we use for cleaning that.
Barium B12 chem tool.
Yes.
Yep. All right. Find that at my local store, maybe.
Pretty much anywhere.
Yeah. Barium and name has been around for a long time.
Yep. All right. Thanks for the call,
Barium,
Steve.
Chem 12. Thank you.
Take care. All right. We're going to take a short break, says producer Doug. I can see him in there saying, break. And I'm like, I want a Kit Kat. Yes, I do. So break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar, Doug, and we'll be right back. 866-594-4150. You're listening to Under the Hood.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
Welcome back to the Under the Hood radio show. I am Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom. You can reach us at 866-594-4150. We are stacked up with calls, and we are going to go right to the phone, and we're going to talk with Frank, who has a 2014 Nissan Altima. Ultimate.
There's a lot of people that say ultimate when they call out asking for parts.
Ultima. Is it the ultimate, or is it just an Ultima? Ultimatum.
It is the ultimate.
Oh, no.
We ultimately lost him.
Did we lose you, Frank? Are you still there?
No, I'm still here. You guys hear me?
Yeah, now we can. We're good to go. So,
all right. So 2014 Altima.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a whole lot of miles on it, but it has started overheating recently.
Uh-oh.
So they have, and it's my mother's. They replaced the radiator, replaced the water pump, replaced the thermostat, replaced all the hoses, replaced the radiator cap. Still overheats. I've had her come over and I've looked at the fans, thinking that maybe there's an issue with the fans. They're not coming on when they're supposed to, or maybe they're 2-speed fans and it's not going into high speed, and everything seems to work. She'll drive it and it's not overheating. Nothing's wrong with it for a while, like going from Buckeye to Phoenix, far distance, and all of a sudden it'll just start overheating. Needle goes almost all the way over to the EH, so then she turns the air conditioning off, and then it starts coming back down. And then after that, she'll try to turn it back on, starts overheating again. Goes and pulls over the vehicle, fluids going all over the place out of the reservoir. And she'll go and fill it up, start driving it again. I went and I took it and I was driving around. I didn't have no problem. Did not overheat. Air conditioning on. But when I got to my house, I could smell the coolant. I popped the hood, looked underneath, and it's bubbling in the reservoir.
So it's
getting a brand new cap on it.
Getting close.
And it's 118 degrees probably where you're doing this at, or is this in the normal 100-degree stuff?
oh no, it's anywhere between 108 to 112, 113.
So that car should work perfectly in this weather.
Well, it should.
It should.
if it's functioning normally.
She's already $3,000 into this car at the shop, and I keep telling her, don't take it there.
You said they've put a radiator in it? Have they put a new radiator in it?
Radiator in it. Yeah,
Okay.
brand new radiator, 2 thermostats. She's on 2 thermostats.
If it's had all this,
2 radiator caps.
you've had all this stuff installed on it, and it overheats going down the highway where there's plenty of airflow, and then when you stop, it's cooking a little bit. My next step is to do an exhaust gas check, a hydrocarbon check of the cooling system, which is done by removing the radiator cap when the engine is not boiling hot, or it's going to have a ton of pressure and burn everything around it, including you. That's not good. And then just a simple tube is put on there that has a liquid in it. It's blue. And you draw the air out of the radiator through this liquid, and if it changes to yellow, it means we have exhaust gases or hydrocarbons inside of that coolant. That tells me I have a head gasket failed or a cracked head. If you've got a cracked head, the warmer the engine gets, the bigger the cracks typically open up, and it causes this problem. And that would lead me that direction. That's more of a major repair for you on this car, because you'd have to tear it down to replace it. The other thing you could do is I
know what I would do.
And don't pull it apart, because there are other alternatives. I mean, you could pull it apart, but you're looking at, a couple $1,000 at least on.
And you said this is a low mileage car too?
It's only got like 120, 130, 140.
Yeah, and this is what we would call a minor leak if it's a small head gasket crack or a head crack, cylinder head crack, or a head gasket leak. A major one is when it's doing it constantly all the time. But this does it sometimes when you're on the highway. I would try something else in there, and that something else.
I would try KCL Ultimate. They are a partner of ours, but we have used this in situations like this many, many times.
Mm-hmm.
When you know that you've checked the rest of the system, and sometimes people are able to check these things without having to replace everything. You can check a radiator with a heat gun and see how the temperature is moving across the radiator. You can physically look at a radiator and see if it's gotten just so plugged up with debris that it just can't be cleaned any longer, or the fins have gotten bent over by 150 mile an hour bugs hitting it, or whatever it might happen to be.
It's all been done.
And all this stuff's been done already. You've got an open system. They can check the flow in and out of the heater core without having to pull the dash apart, make sure there's not a blockage in there for some reason. All this stuff you've already did, so that the KCO Ultimate poured in to the coolant, if it happens to be a type of crack that works for, it's a
small one, which probably has.
It's going to work up to the biggest one any sealant can do that we know of. And it would be very frustrating to you to know that you could spend just a few dollars and put that in, and the problem goes away. You're going to smile, but at the same time, you're going to be frustrated that you've went this far.
Right.
Well, we had, Ben.
And the other thing, I pulled the radiator cap off, had her fired up, pulled the radiator cap off, and the old school, look for bubbles.
Yeah.
And it just starts surging up and down.
That's a head gas. Yeah, that's.
You can't ever.
Typically, that's when you're getting engine compression leaked into the coolant system.
Just a little bit, and it hasn't reached all the way to the cap yet to give you the bubbles. But I would try that, and I can tell you what, you can guarantee that it is an internal small crack or a head gasket if you put KCL Ultimate in there, and the problem goes away. That's how you know right there. If you put it in and after 100 miles or so of driving and you don't have this issue anymore, well, you can say that's what my problem was. And we've put it in people's cars that have been driving now they've been running around for several years, and they're not having any issues anymore. We got a guy up at our shop. He's been with us for decades now, old Benny, and he's got a Volkswagen. And
does he got some KCL in the Volkswagen?
Yeah, the Passat was actually dripping on the ground a little bit and starting to run warm. And I'm not going to tell Benny, dude, you need to spend $3,000 to put head gaskets on your little V6. And so I said, I got something I want to try. And if it works, we'll bill you for it. He's like, well, I like that, free. So we put it in. He drove it about 50 miles, and he had to come back and tell me it's not leaking anymore, and it's staying cool like it's supposed to. And I said, well, great. I said, this one's on the house. Drive it around a little more and let me know. And now it's been a year, and it's had no issues. So it's something that
And there are times
believe
that it will not work because the problem is of a nature that it just can't seal the crack, or
We've had a few of those
leak
that
in the
were really
head gasket
big.
or whatever it might happen to be. But
Yep.
like Russ said, if you're having that kind of a leak that is coming in late in the game when the engine gets heated up, this will work a lot. So I'd give it a try. The only other thing on Altimas, but it's usually on a little bit older ones, and it would be different symptoms, is it would probably have killed the engine by now, but they had some problems with the catalytic converters coming apart.
And that gives you a power issue.
Yeah, and you would have had other problems related to that. But if it sounds to me like a cooling system's brand new, unless there's something stuck in there from somebody working on it, they should have checked hydrocarbons, in my opinion, much earlier in the game to see what's going on. If they looked at everything else,
That's what I thought too.
All right, Frank, you got
maybe they
Won't let
have.
me talk to the they won't let me talk to the mechanic.
Well, you're talking to the mechanics here. So, Frank, you've got another question, I think. So we're going to bring you back right after. We got a hard break coming up here. We're going to bring you back right after the break, and we're going to talk to you about your other question. Is that good?
Yep.
All right, we'll see you in just a second. All right, you are listening to the Under the Hood show. We're going to take a short break here. We're going to come back and talk to you. 866-594-4150. The Under the Hood show is brought to you by Sturdivants.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
Welcome back. I am Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom, and we were talking with Frank before the break, and we are going to go right back to Frank, and we're going to talk to him some more. What's your question, Frank?
So my question is have any of you guys gone with EV?
Have we purchased any ourselves?
Yes.
No. But that's not because we weren't ready to purchase one. It's because we're not looking to buy a car at this moment.
If a person did want to buy one, I would wait just a little bit because they're dropping prices very, very aggressively on certain models.
Yep. And as more come out,
Ford dropped the price on the Lightning, on the Mach 1, or on the Mach E. I said Mach 1, I just did that. The Lucid Air just had a big press release. They dropped their prices by like $12,000. Now, if you're looking for a $140,000 Lucid Air, you can get a better deal now. But there is a lot of price pressure on the EVs right now because Tesla had made a big move on that. We announced on the show last week or 2 weeks ago, I can't remember which show it was, but worldwide sales of a particular vehicle in the most recent quarter, the Tesla Model Y outpaced
made it the car of the year.
Corolla outpaced the Corolla as the sales leader
First time
for that quarter. And so there is definitely plenty going on in that sector, but the prices are dropping. Now, what I tell you what I have done at our business, I've got 4 electric forklifts that we would not trade in at all for a propane-powered or a gasoline-powered forklift. So we got some really nice Toyotas. We just got a new Toyota Sense that has sensing abilities to tell if there's people behind you and stop you so you don't run them over. That
nice.
Seems like a good feature. But there's a lot of good technology and there's a lot of good things coming. There's applications where I would be very interested in an electric car, but they're not all of them, and there's so much to figure out yet. And we don't like that. They're pushing it so hard because there is a spot for this stuff, and there's some good products out there, and it's just got to fit your use, and it doesn't fit everybody's use right now.
Yeah, and it's not fitting my use enough that I'd run out and buy one and get rid of the car I currently have.
I totally understand that. So I'm an EV owner. I have one, which is a 2019 e-Golf, full electric. It's an all right car. It's a real nice car. And then I've got two vehicles, which are the gasoline vehicles. So just from an observation point, I can't even leave the valley because I won't have enough charge to get anywhere else. I get 100, and it says 125 miles per charge, but I can. It depends on how hard you are on the throttle because it'll drain the battery fast.
Right. And we've got some customers. We got a guy with a Nissan Leaf, and he can't make it the 28 miles from Sioux Falls to our town without having to recharge when he gets to our place and go
That
back.
must be an older Leaf.
Yeah,
Yeah.
original. It's the
Yeah.
original model, and the original Leafs. If you could get 60 miles out of them,
Yeah.
70 miles, you're lucky. But as he said, I plug this in every day and drive it to work in town. He goes, I never have a problem. He goes, I barely use 25% to get to work and back every day, and he says it costs me pennies compared to his other cars. So he drives it. He says, I'd never take this thing out of town. But on the other hand, I've had a couple listeners with Teslas call in and say, Russ, you don't have to retire to drive one of these. I've driven across country, planned my stops using the navigation in the dash that tells me where to charge, and charged 10 to 15 minutes at a time at supercharger stations while I went into the bathroom and grabbed a pop or something, to drink, and took off again. And I had no problem getting where I was going. So, it's all in the person who drives it and what you want to do. But we got to move on to the next call. I got a whole full stack of them here, and producer Doug's giving me the caller eye. But hey, we appreciate you calling.
Let us know how you turn out on that case seal.
Yeah,
You bet. Take care.
I will. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to David, who has a Silverado. What's up with the Silverado, David?
Well, I'm just kind of curious. I bought this a year ago, and I have a little over 200,000 miles on it, and I was curious about servicing the transmission.
Yeah. It's a good idea if the fluid is not burnt black. At this point, you don't know how many miles are on it since it was last serviced.
If it even has been.
Yeah, that's true. So pull the dipstick, smell it. If it still smells like a synthetic type of fluid, like you can smell new transmission fluid, see what that smells like. If it's got that kind of, it's a synthetic smell. You'll know. Oh, or if it smells so rancid you just want to throw up because it's black and burnt, don't change it. Just save your money for a replacement when that day comes. But if it's still got a nice reddish brown color to it and it doesn't smell horrible, then I'd say,
Then you get some fresh fluid in there, get some
Change it.
fresh chemicals in there, for sure.
Yeah, keep her rolling. But that's our suggestion on them. But we never change them
Now,
if they're black.
Would you recommend, if it's okay to change, would you recommend changing the filter too?
A 2000 with that many miles, it wouldn't hurt because it will collect. Normally we tell people, don't worry about changing that filter if you have regularly flushed it, because you're going to be removing almost everything that's in there when you're doing this, doing the flush, because they're still fine particles. They're small, but it's a 2000. So it's, almost 24 years old, and it's run long enough that you can take a peek and see what it looks like inside and see if the transmission is starting to have clutch failures or anything like that in there.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being a hoodie and listening to the show. We appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
All right. We're going to move on to one more call. Jack, who has a 1996 Ford Explorer. Hello, Jack.
Yeah, good morning, guys.
Hey, Jack.
My neighbor's got this Explorer, and he drove it to Aberdeen here this past weekend. Up there and back, no problem. Come back and park it in the garage. Won't start. So he asked me if I knew what was going on. I said, well, I'll look, but I don't know. I went over there and checked the battery. Had good battery voltage. Checked, and it spins over good. And I checked the spark. Got good spark. And I said, well, it might be something to do with the fuel. So I got to the fuel rail, pulled the cap off there, and pushed the plunger down, and no fuel there. No fuel at all. And we put some more fuel in the tank just in case, but no fuel. I had him tap on the back of the gas tank, see sometimes he jerks something loose, but nothing happened. But and I never thought about the relay, the fuel pump relay. I didn't know where it was anyway. I wouldn't have been able to check it. It could have been something like that too. I don't know. It's either the fuel filter, the fuel pump relay, or the fuel pump. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's common for fuel pumps to fail in an Explorer of that age. It's getting a couple years on it, going back to 1996.
Yeah, it's a 5.0 winner.
So you pulled it in the garage and it stopped. So one of two things has happened. Either the fuel pump quit, which it can because you shut the engine off.
It just shut off and said, I don't want to do this again.
Or it is possible that the fuel pump collision switch tripped. It's getting old and weak. And when the door was shut, it popped the switch. I believe that one, it's located one of two places, either between the front and the rear door. If it's a 4-door on the driver's side in the pillar, there'll be a little plastic cover on it. I can't remember if any of them were ever in the passenger pillar between the two doors, but there's a little cover there, and it usually says fuel switch on it. You can pop that cover off. Look in your owner's manual.
It's an inertia switch meant to shut the fuel off in an accident.
And the other place they put them was behind the right front floorboard kick panel. On the top, you could reach up over the top of the plastic and feel it. And it also had a little embroidered, embossed, melted into the plastic thing that said fuel switch, inertia switch right on it. And if the owner's manual is in it, which is weird because new cars, I don't see a lot of owner's manuals, but in these older ones, there's still a lot of paper manuals in the old fake leather binder in the glove box. So we pull those out and where's that switch at? Here it is. The new cars have removed those switches. They're all computerized now, using the airbag system to tell it collision, airbag, shut that thing off, computerized to shut it off. But I think, that's where we would go. We would look at the inertia switch, and then the next step is that, check the power at the fuel pump, which requires unplugging it under the vehicle and checking voltage right there. Those are the two most common things we see.
Okay.
Well, give it a shot, Jack. You always seem to figure things out. Maybe you can help be the good neighbor that you are and get it figured out for him. Thanks for calling the show.
Appreciate it, Jack.
Okay, thank you. Bye now.
All right. Well, it's that at-home diagnosis, and I tell you what, between the Under the Hood Show and the YouTube, and YouTube on Under the Hood Show, or Under the Hood Show on YouTube, one of those things, you're bound to figure it out. We're going to go talk to Ryan in Minnesota, who has a 95 Impala. It's older vehicle day to day. How you doing, Ryan?
Oh, pretty good. How about you guys?
We're amazing. Even without Chris, we're amazing. Now we're stupendous with Chris, or some bigger word than
amazing. You got to start
but
rating words on which one's more amazing.
Chris can do it. He can actually think and push buttons back here at the same time. And for me, the pushing buttons and thinking and it's fine driving a car or something, but I don't know about this radio gig. One of these days I'll get it. We're starting our 34th year now this week, so I'm trying. What's up with the Impala?
My air conditioning is too cold.
Oh, no. Poor guy. I'm playing Chris now.
Yeah. I have no control with the knob, the middle knob.
Yeah.
I can have it turned all the way, or right in the middle, and it's still just cold.
Okay, the 95 Impala. That's going to be the
LT1 motor. Electric
now. That part is going to be electric with I think it's electric over vacuum with vacuum doors and electric blend door for the hot cold temp.
I don't know that for sure.
I know at least the blend door is electric, but the other parts could be vacuum or electric, depending on the system that's in it. It goes back a ways, so I got to think. But the electric part's good for you because our two most common issues are going to be, number one, the blend door motor behind the glove box, and number two, that control panel in the dash. Had a few problems with those control panels. We sold a number over the years, and I bet one could be located pretty quickly on Car Dash Part if you needed a control panel. But as far as that part behind the dash, our partner over at Dorman Products makes a blend door actuator motor for that vehicle. As cheap as they are and as easy as they are to access in that car, if it were my own car, before I did a lot of diagnosis, which is not really possible with a scanner because of the age of that car, I'm probably just going to take the blend door motor off behind the dash, turn the door by hand, and make sure I can, make it go thump, thump both ways.
The part actually in the HVAC box in the dash.
Yeah, the little shaft. Make sure it moves freely and goes thump each direction so it's getting a good seal. And you can feel the temp go to hot and cold when you switch it with the car warmed up. If that works, then I'd plug the motor in, put it on, and see if your problem is fixed. like I said, they're pretty cheap, $18 to probably $35 for this part. And you're doing it yourself, you're going to save a lot, because in the store, if you go in, it's probably a $200 repair. So I would give that a shot first and see what happens with it, because that's going to be your most common thing. And we have very little problems with the boxes in those cars.
Yep. Sweet.
All right. Take care.
It.
Hope that helps you out.
Yep. Yep.
All right. It's, the blend doors, that's really important in as far as something to check on in a car before you're spending a ton of money on other stuff. We do have shafts that break in those, and other things, they get mice and things in them.
Certain models are more prone to that, we find out, than others, as far as that goes. The HVAC systems in general, this time of year when we've had sweeping heat across the country, there's been people that have been pressing hard on their AC systems and making sure that stuff is all working properly is really important. When he first called in, I thought he said his air conditioning was too full.
Yeah, too cold. Well, too full. We've had that.
That's what I thought. I wrote down too full. My hearing is not going well, Russ.
Years ago, we said, how many cans of AC refrigerant does it take to blow up an air conditioner? You remember that one? And the guy had I think he had 12 cans. We're like, whoa. How many cans did you put in there? 12 ounces? No, 12 of those little cans you get at the store. And we went, stop right now.
It's hard to believe it would even fit in there.
Yeah, well, it's amazing what you can fit. If you've got the compressor on and you're pulling it in the low side, it'll pack it till it blows the relief valve or shuts the system down. So, though that can happen. So we see all sorts of things. People put stop leak in. Please don't do that, people. It's a bad thing to do with your AC system. And when you take it in to get it repaired, you can damage the machines that these shops have, and they can get angry with you. In some cases,
machines are expensive.
At some point, they may want you to replace it, unless you tell them I've put stop leak in it, and they can take precautions. But if you don't, and you say no, I didn't, well, yeah, you can pretty much be guaranteed. If you say no, you didn't, and they catch you at it, they might just want you to fix their machine, because it gets expensive on those things, or not. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back on the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivant's.
Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
Welcome back to the Under the Hood Show. I'm Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom. Chris Carter is out today on loan to higher powers, but he'll be back next week. We promise. Maybe. We hope. If we're lucky. 866-594-4150. Give us a call, and we'll do our best to get to your phone call. We've got a bunch stacked up right now. We're going to go right to the phone, and we're going to talk to Luis in California with a 2012 Porsche Hybrid. How you doing, Luis?
I'm doing good. How about you guys?
Good. What can we help you with your 2012 Porsche?
So, I noticed I got a check engine light. So, once I got a check engine light, I pulled out the code, the engine code or something. And I got an error code of P0D61 or something, and then it was about the
battery temp.
It was about the battery cooler, battery fans. So once I got that checked out, I noticed that both of them were working just fine.
Well,
and
they are blowing just fine, but you still get the code, right?
Yeah.
So there's a temperature sensor back there that's reading the temp, and when it reads high, it's going to use the ECM of the vehicle and say, let's turn those fans on. And they're pulse width modulated, which means it just rapidly cycles them at a slower rate to keep them running slower, and a faster rate to keep them running a higher speed. So if they're just screaming full blast back there and you still got a code, it's very likely that temp sensor is failing. It's probably failed within its range, which means If this temperature sensor, let's say it's supposed to read between 200 degrees and minus 10 degrees. If it's stuck somewhere in there, but moving a little bit, the engine computer doesn't know if it's the actual temperature or if it's broken, and it's not. So it's just going to turn the fan up to high and give you the code because it says it's hot. If this thing failed outside of its range and was past the max, it's going to set a code for that, turn the fans on high, and then you're lucky. It just says temperature sensor circuit.
So as a default, it just goes to full fan just to protect itself because it says, I don't know if I'm getting good information here, so we're just going to turn these fans on.
My first thought is by as many of the hybrid cars and the electric cars as we've seen that have had this type of system failure and that code, it probably has a failing temp sensor in it. That would be my first thought.
Is it common?
It is. We see that. I've had a lot of people email us and ask us this question, and we've said, you know what, get it checked, see what the actual temp is versus what it's displaying. And they said, yeah, Russ, I checked it, and my batteries are at 144 degrees back there in that compartment. I've got a temp probe back, wire stuck in there, but it says I'm at 240. I said, well, let's see what happens. So they've changed the sensor, and now it's reading the accurate information. So by what we learn by what we see from example from our listeners and customers that come into our shop every day, and we've had a lot of them with temp sensor issues. Not a lot of Porsches, but we've seen a lot of temp sensor issues just with the hybrid cars have been out for so long. It's a pretty common issue.
What model is yours?
It's a Cayenne hybrid.
Awesome.
Okay. All right,
we got to guess. Let's guess color on this one.
I think it's powder blue.
I think it's white, and it's
Silver.
got
Silver.
You can't guess your own color of your car. You already know. We're supposed to guess. Does it have the green trim on it, or with the hybrid, or is that the newer ones they did that on?
That's the newer ones. Ours, I think it's like the trim is like. I think the exterior is like I think black or something, but the interior is like the trim is wood.
Yeah, I saw some of those newer ones where they did just some really fun trim on the hybrid models, just kind of showing the green, and it was neat. We'd seen them up in Minneapolis here a few years ago, but glad you're listening to the show out there in California, and we're able to give you some things to think about and hopefully get you figured out.
Oh, I've been listening to you guys for about 3 to 4 years now.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. Pass it on to other people. We'd be very appreciative of the passing on of the End of the Hood show. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Luis.
All righty. Thank you, guys.
You bet. Take care. We are, they're definitely not taking over all the ICE cars, internal combustion. Boy, that was a hard one to get down in my head. What's an ICE? It's an internal combustion. Somebody asked me that time, well, I got an ICE car. What is it, like an ice cream truck? No, ICE. Like, what does that mean? I don't know. They call it an ICE. Oh, internal combustion engine. I get it. So, but they're out there. They're out there. 5 years ago, we weren't getting 3 calls in a row about EVs. We had the guy with the Golf EV, and then we got a Tesla coming up, and
a Porsche hybrid.
I
really think the hybrids are going to really just continue to take strength here.
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see
it's a good combination.
Or a diesel hybrid. That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So we continue to watch the manufacturers evolve, and they're still putting the ICE products out there because, like we talked about earlier in the show, it's just not every situation matches up for an EV yet.
No.
And the infrastructure is being worked on, and these things are all coming. And there's definitely a place for it, but we just got to make sure we've got good options available for everyone.
That's for sure. But they're out there. We're getting, like I said, we had a Leaf in our shop the other day. We've had people wanting to get their brakes. They're starting to get the brakes now on Teslas.
We've got our fleet of electric school buses for our little school in Garrettson. I'm the school board president. They'll be coming in this fall. We got 3 of them coming in.
All right. This has been another episode of Under the Hood. We got some callers lined up right away for the next show. The Under the Hood show is brought to you by Sturdivants, and we will see you again shortly. Take care, everybody.
You're listening to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood radio show. I am Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
866-594-4150. We've got a couple callers on the line right now, but we have room for you. So give us a call, 866-594-4150, and we'll get your question answered. We're going to go right to Paul and talk to him about his 2014 Tesla Model S. How you doing, Paul?
Not too bad.
What's up with the Tesla?
I have a dead high voltage battery.
Oh, no.
And, Tesla says it needs to be replaced.
And what are they telling you for a price?
$22,000 installed if they could only get one.
All right. Well,
and they can't give me a time frame.
Yeah, that's up there. So you've got some options, but they're limited, especially if you're doing it yourself.
I've got some thoughts. I'll see what Russ has to say here.
Yeah, there is a guy who is that I've got to know a little bit through the radio world. He's a YouTube guy, and I'm a radio guy and a YouTube guy. But Rich Rebuilds on YouTube, if you look him up, he used to be a Tesla guy, like a official guy, but now he's all things electric. They're building stuff, they're tearing batteries apart, they're putting electric motors in things that shouldn't have them. Well, that didn't have them.
Putting ice motors in things that are electric.
Yeah, I mean he just does all sorts of crazy stuff, and he's found some ways to get around that super expensive fix. And it's when a Tesla battery fails, or any electric EV battery or hybrid battery fails, it doesn't necessarily mean the entire battery has failed. A bank of cells may have failed, and a lot of times they are repairable if you find the right people to do it. And I am fully confident that as we get into the future here, because the demand is getting higher every day, we will see companies take these batteries, rebuild them, and resell them. Currently, they are taking your Model S battery out of like this 14. They will take them, they will repair them, and they will turn them into home power cells for power walls and things like that. Not the Tesla Powerwall, because they're selling you a brand new battery, but they will sell you, a complete power system for a backup battery at your house. And how they're doing it is they're taking these car batteries and they're going through them. So that's one option. And Shannon has another idea.
Well, we were on with our trade association. We were on a tour, and we went to Gruber Motors in Phoenix, Arizona, and he has got a repair facility there that he works mainly on the Tesla Roadsters. I shouldn't say mainly. That's how he kind of got known. But he also is. We saw numerous Model S batteries removed from cars, opened up, being worked on, having cells and modules replaced. It's a bit of a challenge because you got to balance everything to make sure that they have a balanced load inside the battery.
And they're small. If you've
Yeah.
ever seen one open, it looks like a bunch of C-cell batteries for a
like
flashlight.
tall C-cell batteries almost.
And independently, they're very kind. They're not going to kill you independently. But even like a
when they
flashlight,
all gang up together.
if you took a flashlight and took it apart and lined up, 100 of those batteries together and touched the ends, that's it. It's all about DC voltage.
Now, we do have also people that will buy, and this is the part you got to look for the people online probably to help you. Where are you from?
Armstrong, Iowa.
Okay. If you get online, you'll find some folks that are in the areas that are doing some of this stuff. They're most likely not going to be at a local independent repair shop. They're probably not at a dealership. They're probably at home in either what could be a very nice shop or maybe not even such a nice shop.
When he said Armstrong, Iowa, my first thought was, hey, I know a guy I got a friend, Paul, in Armstrong, Iowa. And this is Paul in Armstrong, Iowa.
This is.
That's funny. That's funny. But there are people buying and selling these batteries on Car Dash Part. They're getting wrecked cars and they're removing the batteries and they're selling them. The only problem is you got to make sure you can get the interface done or switch the electronic pieces so that the car still thinks it's talking to the same battery. And there's a bit of a science to that. We'll put it that way.
For sure.
And so there are some solutions, but you're not going to find them from Tesla, and you're not going to find them probably at your local repair facility.
Mm-mm.
How about salvage yards with used ones?
We as soon as they're in, they sell, and it's typically for people buying them for other applications.
Yeah, houses and things like that.
Using them to make off the grid storage and because we talk about this all the time in our trade association. There is a pent up demand for people wanting to get the batteries for other applications, and that has helped with the recycling and reuse, which is such a big deal for us. But eventually that pent-up demand will get matched by the market as the market creates the products that actually do what the people are doing as they Frankenstein the car batteries. And so eventually those markets will match and it'll get better for consumers. But in the meantime, we're in this middle ground that kind of stinks.
Yeah.
And so I would look up Gruber Motors on Facebook. And look that up. Like Russ said, look up Rich Rebuilds on YouTube. Start looking into some of the comments on some of their pages, and you'll start getting some directions of people that might be able to help you. And I know, like on Gruber, he said that he's got people that they freight in their Tesla battery, they fix it, and they freight it back out. It's still not cheap, but it's better, and it can be actually get done. But I know when we were there, his waiting list was pretty long.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're over on Rich Rebuilds.
Have you
Go ahead.
Have you dismantled Tesla yet?
The Teslas that we've had here, we've been fortunate that we've always had somebody that wants to buy the complete unit for a project of some sort. They'll take the whole car to get what's in it to use the drivetrain.
Okay.
Well, when you're over on Rich Rebuild's site and you comment on the one where he's switching out the batteries and fixing those cells, make sure you put in your comment there to him. The Under the Hood Show told you to go there. He'll love that. He'll get a kick out of that. So will we. We like that. So you just need a hashtag at Under Hood Show. All right, Paul. Thanks for calling us.
All right. Hey, you bet.
Take care.
Take care.
Yeah, I was up at a deal for anyways, I was up in Minnesota at the
Back to the 50s? Oh,
Heydays, and he gave me his electric golf cart to cruise around, and it was great. We got that was
you went to Heydays, the big snowmobile?
Yeah, for Bully Dog.
Oh, that's right. That's
long time ago.
Yeah, I remember those videos. Gosh, I've never been to Heydays. That's a huge event.
And it was my leg was hurting, and it was a long walk, and my wife was like, "You got to quit walking." And Paul said, "Hey, Under the Hood Show guy, here's my golf cart." So, Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivants, and we'll be right back in just a second.
Make a radio appointment each week to hear the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show.
Welcome back to the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150. Get on the phone right now and give us a call like Steve, who has a 2005 Lincoln Town Car. How you doing, Steve?
Fine.
What's up with this town car?
Well, I've got the rear air suspension.
Okay.
We replaced the two airbags, and because they were weather jackets in that, so we put in two of them, and the new airbags won't go completely hard.
Okay.
In that, so he don't know what's going on.
Well,
All right.
if the old bags had they gotten so bad that they were leaking?
Yeah, it was far down. They're flat.
Because when that happens, the worst part you start getting contamination in the system, and also the pump starts running way longer than it should. So it can lead to some problems with the system, and it's not unusual for them to weaken or kill a pump if they go too long with the bags in bad condition. Now, I know Russ has probably looked at these systems more than I have, but I just know historically about any vehicle that we work with at the dismantling operation here, that's what we run into. People will buy, it's one way or another. They'll buy a compressor, not realizing they have a leak, and then they'll kill the compressor because they didn't fix the air leak, or they'll have the air leak and they don't realize that they've compromised their compressor after they fix the air system. Because the system itself has it has a little bit of a dryer built into it, and it's got a compressor for the air, and there's some valves that could be problematic, but it's pretty simple overall.
Yeah, so on that Lincoln, I've worked on many of them, and at each airbag you have a valve, and that runs into a T, and it runs up front to a single plug-in on your compressor with your power, your air supply for your bags in the back. Now that line will naturally leak a little bit between the front and the rear, and that's why they have valves on the airbags. So when the computer says let's open the bags up, it turns the compressor on first, and then a split second later, after the compressor has filled that air line front to rear with enough pressure, you hear the click in the back. It opens up the bags. They raise up, and then before the compressor shuts off, click shuts those bags off to keep the system tight. Then shuts the compressor off, and you'll find the airline leaking. And I had a lot of people say, "Hey, Russ, my line leaks. That must be the problem." Well, how bad does it leak? Well, when it shuts off, I can hear it goes down. There's no air pressure left. You shouldn't have any in there. It's always in a neutral state so that if it wants to drop or raise, it knows what to do. We either vent the compressor first or we add air to the compressor first. Then we open the bags. So if the line, it doesn't have a big hole in it, small leaks are natural at each end. But I'm suspecting what Shannon said, that we have got a compressor that is weak, and compressors can be found all over the place. They're an aftermarket source that is reliable. We use Dorman Products, one of our partners, to replace those compressors when we want to go with a new one. The new compressors are pretty affordable, and that will get you a new valve, a new dryer, a new compressor, a new fitting. It's complete. All you have to do is unbolt yours, bolt this in. So if you've already done bags and the bags came with valves,
we make sure new valves were put on and we don't have a valve problem.
The valves could be bad. If they're leaking, there's a problem there. Now, if the bags aren't,
that's what he thinks. He says there's some moisture coming out of them air lines when you hook them bags up.
Yes. Now, if that happens, you'll want to disconnect both the air lines and run that compressor until they're dry. But if the compressor's already chock full of water because of this thing, running, then you want to replace it because that dryer's full.
Dryer's full, and if it's running too long, it builds up heat, and then that's where you start getting your moisture. So my hunch is you need a compressor, but they'll have to do a little more checking. And we appreciate you calling the show, Steve.
All right, take care, Steve.
Guys.
You bet. Bye.
All
right, we're going to go right back to the phones, and we're going to talk to Zach in Texas, and Zach has a 2018 Ford F-150.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We are great today. How is your 18 F-150 though?
It's running a little rough.
Uh-oh. Is it an EcoBoost or is it a 5.0?
It's the 5.0.
All right.
So I just replaced spark plugs, but at idle, it has a little bit of a rough idle.
Okay. When you replace those spark plugs, did you put new coils or coil boots on there?
I know they did the boots, but not the coils.
Okay.
Was the erratic idle the reason why you did the tune-up with the plugs and things, or was that just done over time and now you have that problem?
It was just the maintenance. It hit 100,000, got the plugs replaced, and then I don't know. I got 20,000 on it now, and it's starting to get a rough idle.
Okay. Well, it's possible that you've got a spark plug that just wasn't manufactured perfectly, and it may be the plug starting to carbon track a little bit. The only way to see that physically without a scanner and oscilloscope looking at the pattern would be to pull the plugs out one at a time and look at them very closely and make sure when you're pulling them out, you don't end up wiping off the carbon tracking that would see. For us to see it in the shop, we would plug our scanner to it, which is more than a code scanner, but our oscilloscope, and look at the wave pattern. We can actually see the spark in the secondary and the primary portion of the coil. We can see that energy traveling in a wave, and then we can look and see what it's doing across the spark plug. And if we see anything else, we know it's leaking to ground. So we can tell if the coil is failing, if the spark plug's failing. But that's kind of a lost art. Not everybody at a repair shop pulls one of these scanners out and does this. A lot of times they just say, let's throw a set of coils in it. There's certain types of repair shops in the range of repair shops out there that they won't look to find out. They can kind of feel it by the seat of the pants and say, well, it's running a little rough. It's already had spark plugs. It's 20,000 miles. Let's put a new set of spark plugs and coils on it. And they'll probably hit it if they replace all of that, but they may not. And then that's the point where you put it all in and go, oh, now what? So we like to check them first.
For your own use, if you're a little bit handy and you got one cylinder that's giving you the misfire, you could take the plug, the cylinder that's next to it, and switch the coil and the boot.
The old swapperoo.
And see if the problem moves or not. And it might even be just in the process of moving the wires in the coil, you fix the problem, because it could just be that something was not making a good connection all the way through, which is unusual, but it can happen. But if the problem moves when you move the coil and move the boot, then you probably really good indication you got a coil to replace.
Well, how long do coils last? Because the truck has 150,000 on it.
Typically, we see about 100,000 miles.
And that's if they're gonna fail, Russ. I mean, they don't all fail, but just if you're gonna have a failure, that's when you start seeing them. Is what you're getting at, right?
Exactly. They don't always fail, but they're just rubber and steel parts in there. So with the heat, the more heat you get under the hood, especially if you're towing. When we see cars and trucks, we see them much earlier. We see 4 to 6 years usually if you're doing a lot of towing, like if you're pulling 5,000 pounds or more, and you're doing that 6 or 7, 8 times a year, pulling a boat or something like that, that'll do it. Otherwise, just gentle, normal, everyday driving, even light-spirited driving, will let these things. We'll see them at. Now it's real common for us to see 16 to 18 model year Ford and Chevy vehicles with some failures in coils. I think the actual material's gotten a little weaker over the years. They don't last like, the cars that started putting coils on them originally, we'd see them go, 13, 14 years before we'd start seeing failures in coils, but we're seeing it more often in new vehicles.
Okay. Well, that gives me a place to start. I appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, Zach. We appreciate you listening down in Texas. Take care.
All right, you guys have a good day.
You too. And maintenance is something that one of the things I had, it was on the show I was thinking about today was, do you inspect your car anymore? We used to get those, you remember, Shannon, all the people that would call for back to school?
Yeah, all
a few
the time.
years ago, I said, I just don't have any more room for back to school because we're getting dozens of people calling wanting to. This year, the entire year, we've had one. And this
They
is
want
what
to get a
said.
vehicle checked for back to school.
No, not checked. Change my oil so my kid can go back to school next week. Do you want it checked over? No, it's fine. But we could give it a quick look. Nope, it's fine. I think more people now, they're doing the old game of let's drive it until something is broken, because typically the broken is something you can live with. I hear a noise, I can get it in. It used to be broken meant the car is on the side of the road. So people wanted to get belts and hoses and air conditioning and all tires and alternators. I want to check my battery and all charging system and check my cooling system out, and do that. But they're just not doing it like they used to. And we've always been ones about preventive maintenance on the show. And I do have a lot of people that want vehicles maintained, but as far as the back to school anymore, I'm just not seeing it. And people are traveling farther to go to these schools now than they ever have. I get people all the time. Oklahoma, and your kids, Shannon, are far away too, traveling across the country. And I know you were like, we got to get the car and get it checked. So you're doing it. But, for our listeners out there, please think about it. You're necessarily not coming into my shop because you're far across the country listening to the Under the Hood show on the radio or podcast or YouTube, but you got to get it checked.
Hey, you owe it to your kids to get it done.
I had one the other day. The tires were so bad they were down to the metal cords showing.
Oh my!
And they had no idea, and they weren't in for a check. They were just in for an oil change. And I said, you need to get some tires. Oh, they should be fine. We just did them last year.
Come here, look.
Yeah, come take a look. So. The End of the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivants, and we'll be right back with your calls in just a second.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
Welcome back to the End of the Hood Show. I am Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom. You can reach us at 866-594-4150, and we're going right back to the phones, and we're going to talk to Dave in Mississippi with a 2014 Nissan Pathfinder. How you doing, Dave?
Hey, guy, I'm doing pretty good.
All right.
Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
What I've got, I've got a Pathfinder's got just rolled over 152,000 miles, and it's actually been a great vehicle. But I've been getting a little worried. I've done a little reading about CVT transmissions, and I'm wondering if I should be expecting an issue, or how long do they last before you have an issue? When should I worry about it?
Well, it depends on how much of a worrier you are. Is that fair?
I'm a worrier.
The CVTs, like most transmissions, have a failure point. Now, we'll see people with trucks, vans, certain cars that they'll come in here wrecked at our facility as we dismantle, and it's got 300,000 miles on it, and we can see no sign of a transmission ever being replaced. We dismantle it, everything looks 100% original. Usually you can tell when something's been replaced because there's different colorations or different torque converters or different things. And so we see them last. Now, when I hear you say, I've got a 2014 and I got 150,000 miles and it's a CVT, I'm thinking, you've done well, Mr. CVT.
Yeah.
And it's probably such a thing that there's not much else you can do other than just drive it and be careful how you drive. Don't torque on things too much and just drive normal. And
look at the fluid. The fluid is a drain and fill only, no flush, or you'll kill it. But look at the fluid, and you can do that by taking the drain plug loose and then just get to the end of the thread and just kind of let it drip out a few drops onto your hand or whatever, I don't know. Then put it back in and see what the color of it is. If it still looks pretty good and you're not having transmission issues, you can go ahead and change it. But if you're already having some slippage issues with it, don't change it. Just make sure it's full by taking out the top plug. Make sure it's topped off where it's supposed to be. Use the correct fluid or you'll kill it as well. and then just drive it. And if you drive it a little easier, you may get another 50,000 miles out of it.
Yeah,
Our experience has been when they're already starting to slip, do not change them. They will.
And I guess to kind of finish my thought, I guess I never got to the end of my thought probably, but we see less high mileage CVTs than we do conventional transmissions in the Nissans. And we've seen plenty of models where they have sent out campaigns that they're extending warranties. They're doing some stuff like we've got an Altima with a CVT. Love the car. And, we've already gotten a note in the mail that says, oh, by the way, and this is a 2019, and then there's people that had the Muranos and, different ones. And you take a 2004, I looked up yesterday for a 2012 Murano. A friend of mine had messaged me just to kind of get an idea on a transmission. And I hadn't talked to him for a while, so I took the time to look it up because I'm not always doing that stuff anymore. And I was just surprised to see that even a used unit for a 2012 Murano all-wheel drive was still well over $2,000 for a transmission. So that tells me that the vehicles are keeping their value.
Yes.
And it also tells me that they're very expensive to fix because people are paying, the market has driven the price to that.
That Pathfinder is well worth spending, we'll just say, a ton of money to put a transmission in it, either certified used or rebuilt. Rebuilt's going to be hard to find. I'd go with used, but because it's a Nissan and it's only got 150,000 miles on it, look and see what they're selling for. You're going to pay crazy money to buy one. So I'd keep rolling. I'd keep it going. Thanks for the call, Dave.
Okay, thank you, guys.
You bet. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're going to jump right back on the phone here, and we're going to talk with, next one up is Matt, who has a 2007 Sprinter. How you doing, Matt?
Good. I just got this thing, and so far I like it. I had one issue where the clip popped off the transmission cable going down to the transmission, and kind of left me set. And I'm looking at it. If there's something else missing, why it did that, but I haven't figured that out yet. But I was wondering, what should a guy? It's only got 170,000 on it, which for these things I don't think is that bad, but I'm not sure. It's a pre-emission truck, so that's a good thing, I think, from what I've heard.
Diesel, right?
And I was wondering what you guys
pre-emissions diesel.
Yep.
Yeah,
like a 3-liter turbocharged.
Yeah, you're lucky if you've got
and
a pre-emission.
And I was kind of looking at maintenance things to do.
Yeah. So on that one, I mean, I would be very leery about buying one with emissions for myself, just because they just seem to be a nightmare when we start working on those emission systems. But people do them, and I mean, they're a great van. They're delivery. People use them all the time. Motorhomes, things like that.
Motocross guys love them.
Yep. But this one here is kind of a gold mine with you got a pre-emission Sprinter as far as what to do with them.
With a 3-liter in it.
Because of the coolers and stuff they have on them, I would definitely do an emission system cleaning on there. We use a Justice Brothers emission system cleaning system, which goes in the fuel and in the oil and helps clean out the parts of that engine that are prone to buildup of all the soot and carbon issues inside of them, and the oil system. That's important on them.
Fuel filter maintenance, of course, on a diesel is extremely important.
Yeah, really follow that because you'll have injector issues. And something for a pre-maintenance would be putting an additive in the fuel. Every single tank of fuel. On my own, anything I own that's a diesel, whether it's my lawnmower or going on up to, it's a very small lawnmower, by the way. But anyways, from the lawnmower all the way up to the big semi trucks, I put that in all the time, because if you don't, the pumps and the injectors will wear. Fuel is, they want to save money everywhere they can on fuel, and it just doesn't have enough lubricity to give us a perfect blend of proper pump protection. Even if I've got a 2024 vehicle, it doesn't have the protection needed to last as long as it could with a fuel additive. Choose the best fuel you can, premium diesel when you're buying it, that has a lubrication additive, but also use that in there. And I think you'll be much happier with your Sprinter over time. And the coolant flush, if it's never been done on this thing, at the very least, get a coolant test strip from an auto parts store. check that. I know our local Sturtevant store here in this area in the upper Midwest sells the coolant test strips. You put them in there and it'll tell you how acidic it's become and whether, so if it tests good for freeze protection and boil over protection and it's not acidic, well, you can leave it. But if it tests bad, let's get it changed so we don't have a problem with it. Those are the big things on the Sprinter.
Yep. Does your shop work on Sprinters?
No.
No.
I only laughed because I was waiting to see what his answer was.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. If you need the brakes fixed, yes, I'll fix the brakes. If you need an oil change, I'll change the oil. If you need, the air filters changed, you need the coolant changed. Maintenance, if you need, basic, that kind of stuff. But if you've got, repair
breakdown
issues,
repair,
if you got breakdown repairs, we're just moving them on because we've chosen not to. Our techs are doing some other things, and the two techs that are available to do that.
About it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I can work on them. I just don't have, I spend my time doing a lot of diagnosis with one of our other techs. And then we have other guys doing, the heavy work while we do the stuff that we can just go in, do it, get it done and move it and keep the cars rolling. So there's a few vehicles we've chosen to not do anymore. The Sprinter's one of them.
Yeah.
A lot of the BMWs and Audis that have been problematic, we don't. But we tell people, hey, brakes, bring it in. We'll get you fixed up. All right. Thanks for the call.
That's why. Okay. Yeah, bye. Thanks.
Take care, Matt. All right. We're going to go right back to the phones, and we're going to talk to Gordon, who has a 2000 Toyota Highlander. How you doing, Gordon?
Good, thank you.
What's up with that Highlander?
I recently bought this. It's a hybrid, and I didn't think too much about that because I like the looks of the car. After I bought it, then I'm starting to wonder, how long is that battery going to last?
Go ahead, keep going. I'm ready to say something here, but I got to hear you out.
23 years
old.
Yeah,
I got to hear you out here. I'm ready to say something. Go ahead.
There's no problems. The battery seems to be charging okay. The car works good. It's got 165,000 miles. From all I've been able to find out, the battery's never been replaced. So this is kind of one of those worry calls. Should I worry or just keep driving it?
Keep driving it.
So,
Russ, what I was going to say though, I've listened to books about listening, and I'm actually a pretty good listener by nature, but sometimes I'm just so eager to say something I quit listening. It's amazing to me, and it's going to happen more and more. The number of people are buying hybrid vehicles and don't know that they bought a hybrid vehicle, the badging has gotten so subtle, and the looks of the vehicles are so similar. Like a Highlander looks the same whether it's a hybrid or not a hybrid.
They'll say things like Eco.
Yeah,
I've got a Chevy Eco. What is that? Oh, that's a hybrid.
To me, that's a testament though to a hybrid because a person can buy one, test drive it, and not realize they're buying a hybrid.
So we're all about batteries. We've got a partner, Clarios, they're a huge contributor to the manufacturing of so many batteries. You probably don't even know you own a product that contains Clarios technology in it. And we have discussed with them on interviews about batteries and car batteries, EV batteries, just the low voltage battery, the 12-volt system, and also the high voltage system. And, you can look at their channel, the Battery Shop channel on YouTube, and see all sorts of battery stuff. But there's comments all the time made about, hey, why does my 12-volt car battery not last as long as my hybrid battery, which has made it 25 to 30 years? If you've got an old Honda, like an Insight or something, and it's still cranking along at 30 years old, you're getting up there close to that.
Yep.
That's pretty amazing. So overall, that's good. And people were scared to death on buying the Prius when they first came out. They were like, oh no, I don't want to buy that. I've heard the batteries are junk. Well, it turned out they extended that warranty, I think 10 years, 100,000 miles in the beginning to give the confidence, and then they didn't go bad. And even that Gen 1, we're just now seeing a number of those that are starting to fail, but they're still driving them.
Yeah,
even
the
with a weak
Priuses
battery.
and hybrids that come into our dismantling facility when they're end of life because they've broken down are few, and they usually have 300,000 to 400,000 miles on them.
Chris's car is getting close to that. Not 400, but I think he's getting close to the two something mark, and his battery is down to like 80%.
And he's a newer generation battery.
Yep. And these drives it.
These older Highlanders and the Priuses and stuff, the success rate's been high. So I'd say if you like the way it looked and it's driving good, keep driving it, and we'll figure it out when it breaks.
And they don't typically just fail overnight. They usually start doing less. Like your in-town driving is where you get your mileage from a hybrid, because that's where it gives you the assist. Not as much on the highway, just some of the acceleration. You'll notice that if you look at the battery monitor, if you switch to that on your screen, you'll say, oh, my battery's at a less state of charge than normal, and it'll gradually go down over a period usually of a couple years. And then at some point when it does fail, it'll either give say hybrid battery low, it'll give you a warning, or it'll just be so low that after driving on the highway for 2 hours where it should be fully charged, it might be at 40 or 30%. And then you say, oh, it doesn't give me as much boost in town. Might be thinking about a battery. And then you could pick up a used battery.
Well, you got recycled original equipment
hybrid
available. And there's companies out there. I know Dorman has bought a couple of different battery rebuilders, and so they're getting into that business with the remanufactured.
Dorman Products sells a lot of remanufactured
of hybrid and EV batteries. So I mean, the market is starting to respond with solutions. Some of them are a little still expensive yet, but they're there, and so enjoy your vehicle.
All right.
So there's checking the condition of it. Just keep
No.
driving it.
Just watch your monitor, like Russ said. Just you can kind of learn where it's at, and just look for trends over time.
All right. Thanks for the call, Gordon.
Thanks. Love your show.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We will. I hope we will. We'll do our best to keep up with that. But for now, producer Doug says, take a break or I'm going to come in there and hit you with a microphone. No?
That's just Cardi B that does that.
He's picking up another call right now. So we got him stacked up. We'll be right back on Under the Hood Show in just a moment. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivants, 866-594-4150. That's our number, not Sturdivants. Look them up on the web.
Car feeling ill? Don't want to spread it to your wallet? Call the Motor Medics now for free advice.
866-594-4150. I am Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom. And like I said, we've got calls stacked up, so we're going to jump right back into the mix here, and we're going to talk to Jason in California, who has a 2014 Toyota Corolla. How you doing, Jason?
I'm good. Thank you for taking my call.
You bet.
For a while now, I've had a intermittent acceleration issue.
Okay.
Where if I stop at a stoplight, and I go to take off, I notice the acceleration is slower and the RPMs and the I guess the RPMs and the speed or RPMs and the acceleration don't quite match up where you'll feel it as it takes off. And then other times I'll feel the power as I'm taking off intermittently. It's very intermittent. And I don't have a misfire. There's no check engine light. The car starts right up real good.
So you're feeling like your RPMs and your transmission, the engine and transmission just aren't syncing right. It's like the power's not there when it needs to be, or it's in the wrong gear, or what is it?
I'm wondering. I think what he's describing, what I'm feeling, I'm getting from him is it's like you're accelerating, and instead of it revving up higher and shifting at higher RPMs, you're giving it a lot of gas, but it's staying at lower RPMs, like it's taking off in a higher gear. Is that kind of what you're feeling?
Well, it's an automatic transmission, so it's not like I'm feeling gear shifting or anything like that. It's just when I take off, the RPMs go up slowly. I feel the car is moving slowly And then other times when I'm stopped and I go again, it feels like the speed matches the
Sure.
RPMs. It's fine.
Sounds like the torque converter is not.
Yeah, something in the torque converter or the transmission's not taking off in low gear. What you might try to do is put the shift lever in the manual low position, shift it down as low as you can, and try taking off from that position every time for a while.
As a test.
And see if the problem goes away. If it does, we might just have an issue in the transmission where they can go in and run some transmission cleaner in it, change the fluid, possibly put a valve in the valve body or work it back and forth and try to clean it up. It might have some buildup on it, not letting it downshift into that lowest gear. If it was setting a code, I'd be more concerned with like a solenoid or something,
Yeah.
but it sounds like it might not be that. It might be that it is actually just hanging up a little bit and it's not allowing it to downshift to that lowest gear. So like I said, you're taking off in a higher gear, maybe taking off in second gear, so that the RPM wouldn't match. It would be kind of slow and dragging as you're taking off. And then once you get up to full, you're fine on the highway, right? Once you get up to road speed, like 40 miles an hour or more.
Yeah. I mean, there's times where I'll mash on the gas and it'll feel like it's not accelerating faster than I think it should.
Sure.
Like I said, it's very intermittent. I did maybe a month and a half back, maybe 2 months back, I did have the transmission flush done for a fluid exchange, whatever the
Sure.
service was.
No change.
And yeah, no change.
You probably have to get that to a shop and let somebody hook a scanner to it, even though there's no codes, and drive it and see what is happening. Just monitor, look at the monitors, see what the engine RPM, see what the speed signal's doing, see what the transmission shift commands are, and a person needs to do that. I think that's where going to be your next step, because otherwise you're going to be spending some money just guessing, and I think there's something there that should be noticeable by a trained technician that's good with their scanner and their tools. Even though you don't have codes, there's something out of sync there, like you said, and it's just hard over the radio to be able to get exactly. But there's different, like I said, that
You can read the data while you're driving it
and see what's happening, and say, okay, it's not going well here. What's it doing? Well, it's not. Okay, well, the torque converter stayed locked.
I was wondering, do you think it might have anything to do with the injectors, possibly?
Usually not on a Toyota like that. We don't see a lot of problems with that. The transmission is where we see a lot of issues, but the other issue we see is plugged up catalytic converters on those cars with some age. So you'll definitely want to have a shop take a look at it, diagnose it, and make sure that that's not happening, because that will give you that exact same feeling as a transmission or something. The RPMs won't match and it'll fall on its face.
Because it just can't breathe as it's trying to accelerate.
They'll do a quick back pressure test on it and then look at the data as they drive it and see what's going on. But if they tell you it's got a plugged catalytic converter, that would not be out of the realm of possibilities.
But that can be tested, though. I mean, that's something they can look at and see. Is this
easily?
Is this exhibiting too much back pressure out of the engine?
Does that help you out there?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Jason.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, take care. Yeah, it could definitely be. That kind of sat in my mind at the end there, Shannon, that I was like, oh, it could have we could have a plugged catalytic converter.
Well, it's uncommon, but when it happens, that's the symptoms it would give.
Slow and steady, they build up typically.
Yeah, and that could be a result of just mistuned engine, or it could be a result of something breaking apart inside the converter itself.
Or even oil burning, but, you should be able to see that.
Yeah, he would have noticed
if
that.
it's starting to plug up, and then, it'd be dropping on that. But, yeah, it's the way it is. Boy, I sure miss Chris. I wish he was sitting over here so I could just be thinking about other stuff and, daydreaming.
He's doing some stuff that he needs to do. We're glad to have him as part of our team, but like anything, we all are going to have a break. Next Thursday, I'll be gone attending a conference, so I think the week after that, we'll get the whole gang back together again. So
yes, we will. Well, we appreciate everybody for listening Under the Hood. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're not on the radio. Radio is awesome. Some people listen to the reruns on podcasts, so if you do that, like and subscribe. Check us out on YouTube. Till then, we'll see you next week on Under the Hood. All right. Welcome back to Under the Hood, to the after show. We're going to go right to the phone because Verge has been hanging out, listening while we're on that really short break at the top of the hour. He's got a 2004 Cadillac DeVille. How you doing, Verge?
Well, I'm doing pretty good, but I've got a concern with the biology experiment going on in my heater.
Oh, that doesn't sound good. You
gross.
You can tell us more.
I turn on the air conditioning, and it smells like I'm in the middle of a mold factory. I took it into my shop, and they changed out the cabin air filter and gave it a shot of something they said that was supposed to take care of any wayward spores and molds and things like that, and I still have the aroma.
You're going to need more. You're going to need more. I've had a couple vehicles that had that smell, and they had to be treated 3-4 times to get it out of there. There's some different products out there that is made for it. Our Justice Brothers distributor sells us a product called FrigiFresh.
I always love that name,
Yeah,
FrigiFresh.
So we put it on we put it on the maximum position, and we spray it under the dash in the vent and let it suck it in and pull it through the system. And then we put it on the normal flow, pull out the cabin air filter, and we spray it in there and let it suck it in there. But at 04 DeVille, not going to have a cabin air filter, so you're going to have to spray it in through the outside inlet, which is going to be up in that cowl panel. You just pull the cowl panel loose by taking the 2 wipers off, the plastic panel underneath, and you spray it down the hole that you can hear air rushing in when it's on high there. So we do it that way. And then they have a second product that is a MIST, M-I-S-T system. Many shops will have that, and it's got a product in a tube. We put in an electric diffuser, and it looks like a humidifier that you'd set on your counter at home. It's going to have mist coming out of it. You'll see it get pulled right into the system, kind of like a little fire going on into a fan, and pulls it in, and it kills what's in there and leaves a protective coating behind in order to keep it clean and prevent future outbreaks. But that's really the only thing we've ever seen that works and does the job in there. There are some other products that you can find at auto parts stores. So I was in AutoZone not too terribly long ago, and they had a product that you spray in, and it was an expanding foam. And first I thought,
What?
oh, yeah, I use that on my windows at home. And they're like, no, it's not that. It's an expanding foam. You spray it in the air intake with it running, and it coats the inside and kind of expands, so it doesn't get like super big and blow out
Slimes the whole thing with foam.
But it just expands as it goes in, and so it touches more areas and tries to kill that bacteria, and you'll get a little coming out the vents too if you're lucky, because it's gone that far, and so you'll need to wipe it off. But it was a non-staining cleaner for your refrigeration system, and they had a bunch of different ones on the shelf that you could purchase too to freshen them up. But sometimes it takes more than one or two.
Now, if something has gotten into your system,
oh, that's bad.
Whether it be a rodent or
does it smell like a dead animal, or does it smell like the YMCA of the 1970s? I mean, that's the difference between animal and producer Doug's having a riot in there.
It just smells musty and moldy.
Oh, okay. Well, that could just be.
Just make
musty
sure
mold.
there's not foreign debris in there. And that's hard to tell in those closed systems.
Yeah.
But maybe when you take off that cowl vent panel, you might be able to get a look-see at something and look for things. But yeah, there's some good products out there that work
wonders.
Usually to the satisfaction of most of our customers.
That help you out there, Verge?
Well, it gives you a place to start.
That's
I
good.
think it's been treated twice with the stuff at the shop.
Try your own.
Still,
Try your own
comes out
next.
ugly.
That's what I
Get
do.
an ozone generator.
Yeah, that'll work too. But yeah, I would hit up AutoZone and look at the stuff they had on the shelf, because they had quite a few of them to try.
Okay, I appreciate it.
All right, take care,
Thank
Verge.
you, gents.
Thanks for the call.
Have a good one.
All right, we're going to jump right back on, and we're going to talk to Isabel in Washington with a 2007 Mitsubishi Outlander. How are you doing?
Hi, guys. I'm doing great. How are you?
Very well. Thanks for calling.
Good. I I don't know where to start. I work at an auto shop and an auto repair shop, so I kind of feel like you guys like guessing. and everyone tells me the problems. So I thought it would be kind of fun to call you guys.
All
Well,
right.
hey, well, thanks for calling, and
We'll see if we answer
yeah,
what you think
let's
it might
see where
be.
we're at.
But I'm no certified mechanic, so I'm probably worse at it. Um, so I have the 2004. It had a top end rebuild about 3.5 years ago. It didn't get driven for about a year. Then we drove it to Wisconsin a year ago, and then I bought it the fall of that. So it was kind of like in my family. The check engine light was on, but it was from idling low, is what my brother said. He's a mechanic. So then I started shifting manually, like the plus and minus.
Yep.
And that seemed to help it, because it was like when I didn't do that, I could put the pedal all the way to the ground and it wouldn't shift sometimes. Like I'm trying to speed up and I could put the pedal all the way down, but it was like intermittently. So I could put it all the way down and sometimes it would only stay like 30 miles an hour, and then sometimes it would pick right up. So like depending on the day. Then I started shifting manually for a while. The check engine light went off, and it hasn't come on since then. So that was like 4-5 months ago. But now when I shift manually, it almost seems worse, so I kind of stopped doing that. It vibrates around 30 to about 75 miles an hour when you're getting on the highway. The steering wheel starts vibrating. And once in a while, when you're like staying at a steady speed of like 60, 70, it almost feels like the gas cuts out, like it like jerks for a second. And it hasn't been 3,000 miles since my last oil change. It's been a little lower. I have about 1,000 miles left, and it's a quart and a half low on oil. I don't have any leaks that I know of.
Is this, you said, a 2007 Outlander or 2004?
2004.
All right. Boy, my hearing is going to bad today, Russ. I've missed everything.
I'll turn up the volume. Over
No,
here.
it's me. I got a volume control too. But and so when the top end rebuild, or you said top end was redone, was that head gasket top end?
I would assume so. I think he took it out and sent it to a machine shop.
Yep.
Okay.
Probably planed it and put a new head gasket in it and stuff.
If it's doing this where it's got the low power, and besides low power, we have oil use, I'm concerned about a couple things. I'm going to want to check and make sure the catalytic converter is not starting to get plugged, and the back pressure is causing the issue which you would have with the shifting, where manually shifting would work for a while until it clogged up a little more. But you've also got oil use, which will cause the catalytic converter to get plugged up. So I would check the exhaust back pressure first. They'll take out the front oxygen sensor closest to the engine. They'll put a pressure gauge in it, and they'll see what that pressure is, and it should be low, almost non-existent. We'll usually see less than a half a pound at 2,000 RPM steady. So it's going to be, that's it. If it's 3/4 of a pound or 1 pound or more, that's too much and it's plugged. And you'll find that it revs up good without that front oxygen sensor in it. The other thing is I would check fuel pressure and make sure the fuel pressure is not falling off as you drive it. So you'd have to put a mechanical gauge on it, drive it down the road, and when it's falling on its face, look at the gauge and see if it's also coinciding and falling down as well. Those are the two big things I'd look at. But I think maybe your shake, that vibration, is something separate from this problem. In an Outlander, this is an all-wheel drive Outlander, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd likely look at the drive shaft in the rear. We sell as many of them as we can get, both new aftermarket and used, because the joints go bad in them and they start to vibrate. And a lot of times you can just raise it up on the hoist and lift it up and down. And if it lifts up and down at the center joint or either end, then it's bad. It's a faulty drive shaft, and it will cause that vibration. It's very common, not real cheap, but it's very common to fail. So I would check those items first. So your plugged up catalytic converter with a back pressure test and a fuel pressure gauge to look at fuel pressure, and then see if the drive shaft moves.
And kind of some old school thinking. If it was a complete top end rebuild and they went ahead and they maybe milled the head a little bit just to be able to get it flat to plane the head and then put it back together, they might have affected the pressure in the cylinders enough that just the little bit of wear that it had started burning oil where it may not have before. That's kind of old school thinking, but it happens. You get everything fresh on the top, but the bottom has still got the rings that are. How many miles are on the car?
196, 725.
Yeah, so you got a couple 100,000 miles use on that lower end, and then you got a brand new top end. Doesn't always mix real well, and so you could have new oil burning that you didn't have before because of the increased pressure in the valves that you did. Everything had kind of grown to leak the same as it got age in it, and then all of a sudden you seal up the top end. That can lead to some oil burning sometimes. So we're giving you a lot of ugly stuff to think about, but it's just different ideas for you to explore because you're in a shop environment, and those are some of the things we'd be exploring.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I just ordered a Grab Axle the other day and stuff like that. What about? There's another thing when you're speeding up. It kind of sounds like there's water, like in something. My brother thought it might be the fuel filter, but every time I put it on the schedule, I move it forward because there's more customers. But then when I say, "Oh, today's a great day," he goes, "Oh, well, I'm busy now," and I'm like, "Phew."
You typically aren't going to hear fuel. That would be highly unusual to hear fuel. You can hear the pump run, the electronic hum of the pump, but to hear fuel is not something you're going to hear. You can hear coolant sometimes going through under the dash. That's not uncommon. You can get certain cars where you can hear it moving different sides of the heater core or rushing through the lines. That can be heard sometimes. You're not going to hear your engine oil. You're not going to hear your gasoline. You're not going to hear coolant is about it. Is the only thing as far as if you're hearing a fluid rushing noise.
Yeah.
It's like sounds like water is like on the engine. I don't know. The sound is really weird. It's like I kind of got used to it, and then someone else in my car, like, "What is wrong with your car?" I'm like, "Hold on, stop." And then what about it's like a coolant flush? Is that like recommended? I did a transmission flush the other day.
Well, it would have been flushed when they did the cylinder head job because all the coolant would have been out of it. So, after that, you're looking at about 5 years, 60,000-ish miles on a vehicle like that to change it again.
Okay.
That help you out?
Alrighty. Yeah, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate your show. It's been great. I just started listening to it.
Well, awesome.
Very
Well,
welcome.
pick us up on the YouTube, the podcast, the radio. Where are you listening on? What method?
YouTube.
Yeah,
All right.
spread the word. Make sure and like us and spread it around. We appreciate that.
Take care.
All right, I will. Thank you, guys.
You
Bye.
bet. See ya. All right, we're going to go to Rick in New Jersey, who has a 2016 Toyota Tundra. How you doing, Rick?
Hey, okay, guys, how are you?
We're wonderful. We're awesome. Even without Chris, we're still making it.
Excellent. Okay, I have a 2016 Toyota Tundra. It's got the 5.7 V8 in it, and it's got 230,000 miles on it right now. It's the fifth vehicle I've taken over 200,000. Two of those vehicles out of five I've taken over 300,000.
Way to go!
So,
all right.
Well, so besides wearables, I've not had to do or done nothing to this truck, zero, except for changing the oil and obvious things like tires and brakes. Nothing is broken. Nothing has went wrong. Nothing makes a noise. I don't know what to. If you own this truck with 230,000 miles on it, and you plan on needing it to go to work, as an example, what would you do at this point?
For me, on a car, just to keep them going on cars and trucks, I'm into the coolant flush. I make sure that anytime I have any small issues, I address them before they become big issues. Like if it's got a misfire or something like that. But spark plugs, I look at them to see what the condition is, because if you're driving this thing a lot of miles, sometimes you can get more out of a spark plug. It might not be a 30,000 if it's a turbo car. It might not be 100,000 if it's a non-turbo car like this or a truck. It might go longer. So I'm going to pull them out at the recommended time and maybe take a couple opposite ones out and just see what they look like. And if they look good, I'll leave the rest of them in. And then if they don't look good, I'll change them because it'll help out. But oxygen sensors, it used to be.
Would you consider like needing to jump into doing coil packs and spark plugs? Would you consider needing to be proactive and do a water pump or an alternator? Or
No, the alternators in our shop, we have a very low call for an alternator in this truck. It's very rare. The thing we see more than anything else is those darn vacuum pumps. Stupid things. The emissions control pump, they go bad and the valves go bad. But again, that's going to turn the light on and give you a reduced power thing, and you can change it when that occurs. It may never happen. If you're putting this many miles on it, it stays dry enough, you may not have the problem. But when you drive it a lot of short trips, they are problematic and they're expensive to get that part fixed.
Well, and if you have like coils go bad, it's not going to have all the coils go bad and leave you dead on the side of the road. It'll start having a miss. You'll start having a problem. And so that can be your indication. I mean, not very often we tell people to do that, but when you've went this far already and had such good success, I wouldn't rock the boat. I mean, if this was my truck and it was,
do you think?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, if this was my truck in our delivery fleet and we were driving this truck every day and it already had this many miles on it, it would be visiting the repair shop for its oil changes. It would be visiting the shop for its inspection. They, the pre-trip maintenance log would be looking for anybody that's showing up with a check engine light on or any indication that something is running different. The coolant, like Russ said, is always good to do a coolant flush to get that all updated. But there also are test strips you can get to see what the acidity of the coolant is and see where it's at and make sure it's not picking up too much metallic.
Do you think you would jump into the transmission needing, do you think it would be a wise or not wise idea to change the transmission fluid or the transfer case or the differential?
With the mile, when you get the miles up there, I would change the transmission fluid, the front and rear differential fluid, and the transfer case. Those for sure. When you hit 100,000, that's time to do that, and it's just good maintenance practice on any vehicle. You don't want to overdo it, but boy, when you hit that many miles, if the fluid isn't burnt up and mechanical failure imminent, change it to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, I know, like with my trucks that I've had, like with our shop, when they start getting to 60 to 100,000 miles, that's when we're looking at switching all that fluid out. Especially if we've pulled a little bit, you want to get that rear end fluid change. The transfer cases have gotten to be so, they're not just a simple gear unit with a chain in there anymore. They've got clutches in them. There's a lot going on in there. So you want to make sure and get that fluid fresh and the chemicals fresh that help, everything work correctly and keep the moisture out. It's just a good idea to do that. Can you go a lot longer? Yeah, I think you can. But if you want to be preventative, those are the things we'd be looking at.
Okay. Yeah, all my other vehicles that I've been more up on, like as an example, doing transmission flushes and changes and things like that. The only thing that I've ever really failed with on all my vehicles have been transmissions. Those are the things that don't last for me. And so I thought this time I'm not going to touch it as soon as I touch the other ones. So this one, without even realizing, I ran it up to 230,000. I haven't done anything to it, zero, except for oil change. And I always use a mobile one on all my vehicles. I've taken over 200 or 300,000, and I've always changed it every 10,000 miles.
Have you always bought Toyotas?
This is my first Toyota. I've had Chevys, Fords. I had a Honda Ridgeline that I took to 345,000 miles on that. But this Tundra has been the most, amazing truck of all my vehicles, without a doubt. As far as just how well it holds up, and it still feels absolutely solid even with this many miles on it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you've got the magic touch, the Midas touch. Keep it up.
I'll give it a shot. So I'll just I'll do the transmission and the dips and see if anything else pops up as I'm driving.
There you go.
Sounds good. Thanks, Rick.
All right, thank you.
All right. Calls keep coming in, but we're out. We're gonna stop on the calls right now. This is the after show. We got some calls on the after show.
Yeah, we had a steady bank of calls all day today. My paper, we couldn't take another call because I filled my sheet.
Yeah,
that was great.
They're increasing, so that's good.
Tell your friends about the show. We had a few more people here. I know those that are hanging on, watching the YouTube live feed here. Make sure you tell your friends about it and give us those likes and subscribe. It helps us.
And the comments, we got a few comments here today. It's always good. If you're just out there, just let us know. Even if you comment, hey, I'm watching. Thanks. Those are important things. YouTube likes that. They like to see interaction. That tells them, oh, somebody cares about this video. They don't really care how many people are watching. They want to know who's
interacting with it.
You know what? And I find myself too. I watch some videos that I really go, this guy really helped me, and then I just turn it off and move on because I want quick information. And now I found myself, no, look, if I expect people to comment and like on mine, even if it's something small, I gotta like this because they did good.
Reciprocate.
Yeah. So we just picked up another watcher right now. I just looked. We got another one stream. Oh, they went away. Who are you? Where did you go? Why did you leave us? Or did one of the other ones drop off? And
where did they come from? Where did they go? How did they get there?
Hey, so I got something here for the after show. We talked about the cars that people aren't really inspecting them anymore, but stuff they teach you in driving school. I know you're a driving school guy. You interact with some of those sometimes.
My
with
results
some of your
don't show my efforts.
Speeches. So if I were to take any of the people that have been in the classes that you've attended, given the
are you talking about the performance driving school or when I talk to the kids?
The kids.
Okay, keep going.
If I were to take any of those kids after they've been through their regular training, not your training, of course, but their regular driving training, and they've got their license, and I were to come back to them 2 years later, do you think any of them could tell me what to do if they approached a traffic light on a major street that was dead, that was black, not functioning? Traffic light is not blinking.
I've heard that. I've actually interacted with as I come in and do my presentation in our local couple schools that I do it at here, and I've heard that part. And they tell them how to handle that. Now, whether they'd remember it because they don't practice it, to treat it like a four-way stop in a sense.
That is the law nationwide.
Yep.
You come to a non-functioning traffic light unless they are covered and out of service. You must stop and take turns. That includes the turn lanes. There's a symphony to it that has to be done. Sometimes
Did you have an experience recently that brings this to your attention?
I did. This morning there were 3 non-functioning traffic lights. I had to go through one of them that was dark. No one was stopping. The cross traffic was backed up.
They just figured it was their turn to go.
They just said,
fly through.
We're on the major street. So the side street, which was still a pretty busy
amazing
street.
They didn't have a T-bone accident.
They had an officer car, an unmarked one, sitting there just kind of looking off on the shoulder like I think they were waiting for a controller or somebody to come, but there was no one controlling traffic yet. And maybe I was early and it just happened 2 minutes ahead of. I wouldn't have seen it because I came over the hill and there it was. But I got to the next light around the corner where I saw an officer with the control cable plugged into the box. So I'm assuming these were all networked closely, and they were doing the selecting and they were doing a great job. They were, I was like, hey, we pulled up and arrow came on, and you could tell they were changing it pretty quick. But then I got to the next one. There was also somebody controlling it. But my thought was nobody's watching. And I had this question come up. So I asked a young technician of ours, you were just in driver's ed 4 years ago, right? I said, what did they teach you about hand signals? Well, I never took driver's ed. I said, how did you get a license? Well, I just went and took the test. They allow that? I mean, when I grew up, they didn't. That was not allowed. You took driver's education or you did not get a license, and you didn't get it at 14. You got it at 16. If you're a city dweller,
yeah, exactly.
You don't know what end of the cow the milk comes from. You don't deserve to have a license at 14. I'm sorry. That's my opinion. You need to either go to driver's ed or something and learn. Because I asked him, I said, what does this mean? And I put my left arm out. Now I'm doing my right arm. But on the camera. It looks my left, doesn't it? Anyways, I put my right arm out, or my left arm out, and I said, what's this mean? I don't know. I said, well, what's this mean? I don't know. What's this mean? I don't know. I said, well, that's stop, right, left, turn. And then I thought, well, maybe I should hold up another finger. Do you know what that means? Well, I know what that means. That's what
it means you didn't follow the other symbols.
Exactly. And it's crazy. I'm like, why these basic rules? And I've seen, I was in the driver's deal where to get my license renewed, they only let you do it online one time, and then you have to do it in person. Then you can do it the next time online, picture or something. And anyways, I was down there and they were getting really frustrated with somebody who wasn't understanding a test question. And finally they just said, just, you're fine. And I thought, did they just do, you're fine?
They just gave him a pass?
And it was.
Or they knew that they're missing so few that one they missed wasn't going to be the end of the world.
Well, it shouldn't have, because it was a no passing score. But granted, it was a stupid question. It was just one that didn't. Yeah. But anyways,
my daughter's just turning 16, wow. Our youngest, and now she in South Dakota, they've changed the rules recently to be a multi-stage permit. So now she's been restricted up until 16. You mentioned the 14, and this daughter wasn't as ready driver as my other two kids have been.
Sure.
And she didn't have as much experience, and that's probably as much mom and dad's fault as anybody, but she hadn't been out here at the business and at Grandma and Grandpa's farm as much, driving the AMTs and different things. But now she's definitely gained more experience under the restrictions, and now she's 16. Now she can go down and get her restricted permit turned into a regular operator's permit. You got to make that transition now. They used to not do that. It used to be, you had a slight restriction and then you're right onto a full permit. Now they've got that gauged in meter a little bit more, which is good to see.
It's so parents, or anybody that's got somebody they're responsible for that's going to drive, I strongly encourage you to show them show them the things that they won't learn from the video game driving. I was teaching my nephew how to drive, and that's the first time I've taught somebody that's never driven a car. And I just assumed he's going to start it up. I said, okay, start the car. Let's back out. So he put the seatbelt on and he started up the car. He knew how to do that. And then he says, now what do I do? I said, well, just back out into the street, make sure nobody's coming, and we'll go up to the school and practice. Okay. I go, okay, put your foot on the brake, move the lever to here, and then release the brake slowly, but keep your foot on it because we might have to stop. The basics, they just don't. A lot of people know it, but a lot of people do not. You don't learn that from the video game. They don't have all the stuff, and he wasn't an amusement park go-kart driver, so the basics of that, and you don't have to shift the car. Then we got to the parking lot, and one thing that surprised me, I've never even thought twice about. I just guess at some point I learned it driving go-karts when I was 5-6 years old and little scooters around. When you turn a car, if you're going forward and you say, okay, let's make a big loop to the left, just tight as you can, and then we're going to go straight, because they had the parking lot had like weaving lanes all through it. So I said, go up the bus lane, turn left here, make a tight turn, and then let's go that way. Well, he turned, and once he got done with the turn, we were going about 10 miles an hour. He just held onto the wheel.
Oh, he didn't let that unwind.
No, you let it go in your hands, but you keep both hands on the wheel until it goes straight on its own, and then you grip the wheel and you finish turning. Well, he was turning it hand over hand back to where you can't do that fast enough. He was trying to catch up.
He's turning the gear.
Yeah. I thought,
opening or closing a valve.
Now, he learned all these things in 10 minutes. He had it down and was a great driver, really learning, but it was kind of hairy.
It took the hands-on to learn the hands-off.
And then the simple stuff, which you've taught at the schools, like when you come in, you've taught about flat tires, right? Mm-hmm. Well, what do you do if you have an emergency? What's the first thing you do? You don't pick up the phone and call somebody. It's like, let's get off the road to a safe spot. Even if that means driving on a flat tire for a short period, you need to be out of traffic, because people aren't going to stop. And even though the law says move over and slow down for flashing lights, people don't care about that. I passed one last night, 2 motorcycles on the way to the Sturgis rally because they were headed west. sitting on the side of the road, and one of them had a flat tire and was not well off the road.
Oh, that'd be a tough spot.
About 2 feet off the side, and they were standing there, and they were just looking at people like, this is crazy. And there were cars, both lanes, 80 miles an hour on that interstate, just whipping by them, and you could see their bike would blow every time one go by.
Yeah, you got to treat somebody broke down on the side of the road just like a cop with his lights on.
Anybody.
Move over.
Anybody, because it's easy. There's another lane, pull over. And people were looking at me like, why are you driving in the left lane if you're only going the speed limit? Chris, I know you're one of those, but this is a time Chris would agree. But, teach them. And then the gas thing. Even how many times have you told people how to pump gas, Shannon? It's like, this is what you do. Usually they're in the car, on their phone, looking down while mom or dad is pumping gas. When I was a kid and you were a kid,
we wanted to do it.
We wanted to do it. We're like, we didn't have a phone.
Mike Pence just had a video go viral. He was trying to do something political. I haven't seen it yet, but it sounds like it was pretty embarrassing. He was trying to pump gas and he wasn't figuring it out.
Oh, he hasn't done that before?
Maybe not for a while. I got to find it because I heard it was pretty good. But
there's a lot of those guys that don't. They've been.
They probably haven't had to for a long time.
or ever. That's just, and I don't blame them if that's what they do. But my opinion's always been, if I could have my choice, and we don't do politics, but as far as people getting in, I would say, if it's something I wanted to do, I'd say, okay, you have to have a job in the public for 20 years. So you start even if you started when you were 14, have a real job, punch a clock or whatever for 20 years and learn what it's like to be out there, and then do whatever you want, even, whatever the thing is. That's not for me to get into for things and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that would be.
Practical experience is a powerful tool.
And you'd have to learn how to change your oil. You'd need to learn how to change a flat tire.
This morning, my son sent me a picture and some life changes in his girlfriend's family and just things that happen. And he sent me a picture of him running an excavator this morning. So it's kind of
a big one.
Yep.
Yeah, those are so.
I know you've been running the Mini.
Yeah, and I've run the big ones and everything in between. So an excavator, no matter what size it is, maybe you don't know if you've never run one.
I've never ran an excavator.
They're exactly the same.
Yeah.
So if you jump on the tiniest one or the biggest one, they run exactly the same. They have 2 pattern controls for switches A or B, so you can go to a European model or American, and different people use different ways that'll switch the electronic solenoids to move things. But stick and boom and all that is they're the same on all of them, so you can hop in one and hop in the other. But after you run one for even a couple hours, it's just kind of like running this board. Did I just hit that button? I don't know if I did or not, but yeah, you find out you did.
That's why I told him when we were talking about it, I said, Riley, I know you've got great hand-eye coordination. You've done things that require tons of hand-eye coordination, and plus you're a video game player when you're a kid.
He should keep that up because he can make a ton more money doing that than what he went to college for. Yeah, those excavator got heavy equipment folks make a ton of money, and it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman or how big you are or how small you are, because
a skilled operator is in high demand.
You're sitting in this chair and you're moving, and they got a lot of cool electronics that show you some things. But yeah, those operators, they are in short supply right now, and
we better wrap it up here. I got to get rolling.
So. All right, here we go. It's a wrap.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for watching the show here on YouTube and the after show, and we will catch you next week. Take care.